Well, g'day, welcome to the shed, and today I'm going to be continuing with this little Peal battery radio. Lovely little radio, working quite well, but it does need a recap, and I've been toying with the idea of restuffing the paper caps. Now, I don't think it's really necessary. I'm kind of doing it just as an experiment to see if it is feasible. And I've tried a couple of caps here. This is one I've recapped. I'll show you more closely. I'll restuffed, I suppose. And this is one I pulled out of a radio a little while ago that had already been restuffed. I didn't realise. And it seems to have been done with epoxy. This one I'm just using wax. I'll just show you what I've been up to anyway, and I'm hoping that I can come up with an easy method of doing it, in which case I'll use it on this radio. Just for fun. As I said, I don't think it's really necessary, but it would be nice to know if it's feasible. By the way, yeah, it's early spring, but it's raining today, so you'll have to put up with the rain on the roof of the shed. Okay, so this is the one that I pulled out of a radio a little while ago, and it's definitely epoxy or something very hard in there. It's also unbranded, and I'm thinking someone has made this up to resemble a paper cap. I don't know if it ever was. It just says 0.22 UF, which is a newer value. It's got some hieroglyphics on there. 0.22125, so 125 volts. Not sure what type of cap is inside there. Could be anything. Now, this is my first experiment. It has a Carl's cap in the middle of it, and I was trying to heat up the original cap and push the guts out of it and push the new cap into it. That wasn't terribly successful. The paper came out as a sort of a spiral. So then I thought, well, the easiest way is to just melt it and unroll them. So that's what I did, and just roll the paper back onto it. I'll have to fill the ends with something, obviously. I'm not too sure what yet. Now, I've got a couple of different types of wax here. This red stuff in what used to be a paper cup has obviously melted during summer, and this one hasn't, so I presume it has a higher melting point than the red stuff. Now, these were stored on the top of the shelves just under the roof of the shed, and I imagine it would hit 50 degrees up there easily over summer. So this hasn't melted in 50 degrees, this has. So I'll probably go for this stuff. Even though I like the red colour, I think it's probably going to be a little bit too soft. I'm going to try another one experimentally. This is a 0.1, and a couple of things I learned from the last one, and one is that it's really difficult to clean it off after you've got the wax melted. So I'm going to clean it off with some isopropyl and a scourer before I start. Hopefully that will make things easier. Now, this one has a black bitumen substance around the edges, which I think is going to give us a problem because that doesn't melt easily. So I might just have to chop some of that out with a box cutter or something. So I'm just going to slice around it with my alpha cutter, and that stuff is hard and crunchy. It's not, I don't know if it's wax or pitch or what it is. There we go. Alright, so now I've got a layer of paper and wax in the middle, and I'm going to use my soldering hot air gun. I've got that set to 190 degrees at the moment, just to start with. I'm not sure what's the best temperature for it. That's something I'm going to have to learn. Where is the edge? There it is. You can see where it's folded over there. Oh, that rain's getting worse. There we go. You need 3 hands for this. And this does not want to unroll, this one. The other one unrolled easily. Yeah, that has just broken off. I'd say I'm going to have to call that one a failure. Okay, it seems some of these have some glue of some sort holding the first turn of paper on, so I thought I'd try cutting through it and maybe I can just peel the rest off. Uh-oh, we've just lost a bit there. I'll have to be a bit more careful than that with it. This one might also be a failure. But if I can get I thought if I could get a complete turn of paper off it, I can just stick it back on, but that's not going to happen. Okay, I'm going to try something different here. I've got my little adjustable wrench mounted in the vise here, and I'm just going to try and heat it up and pull the centre out. Starting to come out. Oh, the first bit came out. It fell apart. Same thing again. Okay, let's try something else. Got an Allen key mounted here. I'm just going to heat it up. There we go. So that was more or less successful. I don't know if you can hear me over the rain, but it's okay. Now that's a 0.01. You can quite easily fit a 0.01 in there and fill up with wax. Well, I'm not sure how this will go. I'm going to give it a go with a couple of caps on the radio. If they go easily enough, then I'll persist with it. Otherwise, I'll just use Carl's caps, which look perfectly fine, to be quite honest, in a radio like this. So I'm going to start with this one. It's a 0.004, it says on it. This runs from the plate of the output valve, the 3S4 to ground. And the schematic says it's a 0.005, but 0.0047 I'm sure will be just fine for it. So, okay, I'm going to clip it out. I'll clean up the ends of the wiring in a minute, but I'm going to take it out and see if I can remove its insides. This is awfully messy, so I'm going to do it over on the other bench. So I'll just show you how I go with it, if I go at all. Well, I succeeded in pulling the wire right through it. Out one end, it's broken off in there somewhere. So this is not going terribly well. I might try unrolling it instead. I'll see if that has any better results. Well, I don't think this is going to be a goer. This capacitor is pretty much solid black pitch all the way through. It will not peel off and the centre will not pull out. So I think I'm just going to have to go with replacing them with Carl's caps. I presume that they're all the same on this radio. I don't think they'd use a variety of different types. Obviously Ducon used a variety of different manufacturing methods over time. These may be later ones. They may even be better. But this is not going to unpeel and it's not going to pull out. So, yeah. Well, I've replaced a few of these, and so far I've been able to remove the old leads and put them through the original terminals, wrap them over like they were in the first place. So it's nice to be able to do that. Pity I wasn't able to restock the caps, but that's really just not going to work. So this is the grid coupling cap, just down in here for the output valve, and it was this TECHO cap, 0.01, and it actually measures 0.016 or something like that. It wasn't very much out. Looks to be in good nick, but if nothing else, you want to change this one. So I'm just wrapping this wire around, which is not all that easy, but I can go it in there. Now what I don't want to do is cut the wrong end of it. There we go. Okay, a bit of solder on that. I can probably come in from this side. There we go. Yeah, that looks okay. So I think maybe now I've done, what, 3 of them, I'll just test it and keep on testing it as I go. I don't want to find it not working and not know why. Okay, so I've got the aerial loop in, and I'll still hook the outside aerial on because you don't get a lot of reception in here. I suspect that the jumper leads I'm using probably detune the aerial circuit a bit too. So in with the filaments. That's on. B plus on. Let's see if we get anything.
What can I read next? It is disappointing when you're halfway through a book and you go, oh, it's actually not grabbing me.
I don't know why I'm getting that.
Yeah, that's not my cup of tea. That's not really what I want. And that's fine, because that means that you don't waste reading it.
Step into Chemist Warehouse and pick up the aquatic CK Eternity Aqua 30ml, just $19.99. Or the aromatic Coach Open Road 40ml, $29.99.
Okay, it still works. That's all I needed to know. I'll test it periodically as I go. Well, I'm about halfway through the recap. I've basically working my way across, and it's time to take this electrolytic out and see if I can restuff it. I've done the desoldering from underneath, and yeah, it's a bit cracked and whatever. It doesn't look bulging. That's very dry. Yeah, okay. We'll see what I can do about it, hey? This bracket is riveted onto the can. There's no way to take that off. That's going to make it very difficult to file this down. And I'm no great expert at these. I could send it off to Dave Tipton and I'm sure it would come back looking perfect, but I don't know. I did see a video in which someone just got a pair of cutters and gently opened up the edge that way. I'm thinking maybe I could try that. It is kind of working. I'll just have to be very careful not to tear the aluminium can. Okay, so that's as open as I can get it. I don't know if I can remove this. Oh, here we go. Yep, we're making some progress here. Okay, that all looks pretty moist in there still. Hasn't dried out. Doesn't look bad at all. I will need to get a decent grip on it with the pliers and see if I can. Yep, there we go. And look, I'd say that there was nothing wrong with that. Look at it. Interesting, it's got string around it to hold it in place. It was probably perfect. All the other caps I've removed have also been within tolerance. Well, in terms of capacitance. I don't know about leakage, to be fair. Alright, well I'll give that a clean out and we'll pop a 0.8, sorry, an 8 microfarad. What's that, 350 peak? Well, I can do better than that. Put one of Carl's in. I'm just going to use the Dremel to drill a couple of little holes in the base of it. One there, just for the wire to come out, and one over this edge for the ground wire, making it a little bit bigger. Okay, I've J-hooked a bit of extra wire on there, and I'll just slip that up the side and that will join onto the ground. I'm not sure how I'm going to attach that to ground, but we'll think of something. Now that will just sit there, I'm sure. I don't think it needs any extra things to hold it in. There's no way the positive's going to touch the can or anything like that. Now I don't know what my chances are of re-rolling the bottom of this, given that it's got this bracket around it. I can't push it against something to roll it over, so I'm just going to have to do the best I can. Well, I found this broken off screwdriver thing that I've obviously modified at some time to do something, I forget what. I'll try with it and see if I can roll the side over. Not very even yet, but I can probably get it better than that. Yeah, well, that's as good as I can get it. It's not great, but it'll do. It won't be seen when it's mounted anyway. So now I'll just wrap this wire around the positive terminal, solder that on at the base, and I can put it back in. Now I did have that with the value up. Oh, there we go. There we go, that's better. Now, I need this to go up and into there. There we go, he's through. Okay, we're pretty much done, so there's the electrolytic there. I've replaced most of the caps. There's still 2 paper caps to go. Okay, there we go. So, recap's finished. I managed to get all the components through the original tag strips, through the hole, and twisted around like the originals. It's probably not the neatest job, but I put them in the same location that the old capacitors were in, and they weren't all exactly that neatly placed either. So I pretty much tried to replicate what was there. This one needs a bit of straightening up, but overall it's probably not a terrible job. So now to test it, and then I'll do an alignment. Putting the battery in, power is on.
Ryan to the dockers with the kicking duty, comes towards the commentary wing. Ball hit the deck, so wrong went out after it. Anderson's on.
Well, that's working probably as well as it was before. It doesn't seem to be terribly sensitive. One thing I noticed though, there is provision for an external aerial on this that I hadn't noticed before. This panel won't open now. Where are we? Yeah. Inside here, these 2 screws that hold it on go to these 2 metal brackets, and they have a little wire there. And I think someone has marked A on that, I didn't notice before, and E on that. And I think this is a second loop wound with the aerial loop. So I'm going to see if it makes any difference putting an aerial on that. So let's see what happens. Well, it did make a difference. Of course it doesn't have an earth.
Left full back for the Dockers. Mark's allowed to go on a bit of a 55. Desperately flirting with it as John Noble trying to keep it in.
It doesn't seem to improve it markedly, but it makes some difference. It would probably make a difference if I connected this to a good earth, but I don't really have anything handy at the moment.
Really nerves for 2 of their players that have played in finals in John Noble and Daniel Rioli. Well, spun back in, Jackson got the...
Anyway, it's working, that's the main thing. One more thing I wanted to check. I've got another 30 volt power supply here, so I've now linked it up with these 2 halves, so I should have close enough to 90 volts on the B+. So I thought I'd try it with the full B+ voltage. So put the battery in for the heaters, there we go. Okay, so now we should be getting 88.7 volts. So let's just see.
Now it's a Fiorini. It's a long kick inside forward 50.
If the reception is actually any better. Well, we seem to be getting more volume anyway, and perhaps a bit more sensitivity. It's hard to tell. But I'd rather, if I'm going to do an alignment, do it with the proper B+ on it as well, because that could affect the oscillator, I guess. Okay, well, I've got my trusty leader signal generator set up for 455 kilohertz, or 454.89, which is about as good as I could get with it. And I'm just going to do a quick IF alignment. Now I've got the speaker still in circuit here, so I can't do very much about the noise, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to crank it up so I can get a signal on the meter. There we go. Maybe I should put the output down a bit. That might be better. Luckily all the adjustments are on the top of this, so that makes it easy. Have to turn it up a bit, I think. Okay, that's his peak there. Now this one. That's pretty good. Now the other one. Alright, that's it. Now the RF alignment will be a little bit more difficult. I'll do the best I can with this dial, but the markings on it are not ideal. Okay, so the dial on this is, well, a little difficult anyway. It goes past centre when it's fully closed, and when it's fully open it goes past centre in the other direction. So I've tried to sort of balance it out so it's about equal at both ends. But that doesn't make it easy. Now I presume this is kilocycles around the outside here, and we've got 6 just there, so if I set it for 600, trying to avoid parallax, but it will be around there somewhere. That's 600 by the dial looking straight at it, and I know it'll look different on the camera, but that's just the way it is. And I've set out the signal generator for 600. It just changed. What's going on here? Have I changed something here? I don't know. There we go. Yeah, I think it was just loading it up. 599.92 kilocycles. Dare I touch it? 600.25. Whatever. That'll do. So I'm going to feed that into it. Don't need the meter for this. It's whether or not we get it, not how strongly. So I'll remove the frequency counter now, and we'll turn it up and see if we hear anything. It would help if I put power on the radio. Alright, battery's in. Battery's in, power is on there, power is on there. And immediately, yes, I can hear it. There it is, and it's centered right on the 6, looking at it directly. So that's not too bad. Okay, so now I'll go up to 1500 on the signal generator. So that's 1.5 megahertz there on band C. And I better check that with the frequency counter, I guess. So I'll do that. So what have we got here? 1496, 1504, 1501, that'll do, near enough. Okay, so I'll take that off there. Really have got a spaghetti junction of clip leads here. There we go. Now I can hear that at 600. Why can I hear that at 600? Anyway, it should be at 15. And there it is, at 15. I don't think I can. It's fairly broad tuning range anyway. I could maybe bring it back a little. I've got this capacitor here. I'll set that for 15 on the dial and see if I can get it peaked. Yep, well, it doesn't get any better than that. Now the only other thing to do is the aerial trimmer, but I'm not going to do that till I've got it in the cabinet. But that should be a pretty easy thing to do. With the radio working, I've started on the cabinet. I've taken most of the hardware off, and the front door and back panel. And I've started work on this back panel just experimentally to see what works. And I think that's probably okay. I don't want to overdo this. I don't want it to look new or anything like that. We're certainly not going to have that happening. But I do want to have it looking decent at least. So there's quite a lot of frayed. I suppose it's rexine or something very similar. It is cloth based. I'm wondering what's the best way to deal with this. The back panel, this is the worst piece, and there's probably not enough there to glue it all back in. There's this hole here. Now there's a couple of options here. I could cut a section out of the bottom perhaps, and use that to patch it up. It would have to be the full width. And I have some Tolex there which is very similar, and I could replace the bottom with the Tolex. Would need to take it up to a little bit higher than the line where it went before, hopefully to cover most of this, but I can patch that up with a little bit of cloth from here. Or do I replace this whole thing with a piece of Tolex? How much wraparound do we have on the other side? Let's have a look. On the inside we have a good inch of wraparound there. I'll see if that will be enough to have the frayed bit on the inside. So it's about where I'd want to take it. 30 millimeters. Do we have 30 millimeters here? We've got about 25 millimeters wraparound there. So if I took it to there, that would cover, but not quite. I would only do that if it was going to really work well. So let's just have a look at the Tolex I've got, see if that would be a better option, and then I can use this for patching up other bits. Yeah, I just had a look at the Tolex I've got. It really isn't going to be a good enough match, so I won't do that. I'll glue this back and colour it or something. I'll do the best I can with it, but there's only so much you can do. Okay, so the rest of this can be glued back on pretty successfully, I think. It's a little bit bubbled where this hinge goes on, and I just need to scrape out here. That'll be fine glued back down. So I'll do that now. Now glue, probably the safest thing is wood glue, but liquid electrical tape also works quite well on this stuff, so I might just try that on the front where the hinge is. So I'll just put a spot of it there. You only need a little bit. Rub it in and then press it over, and it grips almost immediately, and being black you don't have to camouflage it, which is useful. Okay, so I'll do the same thing with most of this stuff. I have a double layer there, so I'll just cut that off. Yeah, that's not too bad. That will colour up okay, I think. Anyway, I'm not going to make you watch me do all of this. It'll take quite a while, so I'll come back halfway through and show you how I'm going. It has a lot of little tears like this on the surface, and what I'm doing with them is this stuff's really good actually. I haven't used it to this extent on a cabinet like this before, but liquid electrical tape is very good stuff. And just work it in there, a little bit on the back, and then you can tease the fabric back over, press it down, and there you go, and that will dry pretty much the same colour. I'll do the same along the edge here where it's just lifted up. In fact, there's quite a bit here. I'll just put a run right along here. All the way up to the end there, that's it. You can probably tell that this used to be a very dark blue, I think anyway, this material, and at some point it's been painted black anyway, so I can't really do much to get it back to its original colour. All I can do really is patch it up, and I'll try and make it an even black when I've finished. I'm not sure, there's a couple of options for that. There's vinyl dye, which works quite well. It also has its fair share of paint spots as well, but most of them just lift off. This one not so much. Okay, so I'll continue. Come back when I've made a bit more progress. I've just worked some wood glue into the split in this shelf that holds a chassis up, and just going to clamp that up to hold it flat. That should dry okay then. Okay, while that's drying, I've been looking at the back, and I found some fabric. This is upholstery fabric, and I took it out of an old seat that is pretty much the same weave as what's in there, so it should give much the same texture. Now I've cut a piece to fit in here. This will be a bit of an experiment. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, I'll have to do something else, but I'm just going to fit it in there and butt it up to the damaged fabric here, up to here. And it may overlap. I'm not sure if I'll overlap that or I'll cut this back. Okay, I've got a line there, so I'll get some of this and smear it over. Firstly I'll just put it up here first. Alright, now let's put this on before things start to go off. Wrong piece, this one. There's my pencil line. And that should come straight up to it. I'll also cut a little triangle to go in this corner that's damaged. But first things first, we'll get that on. And I can do probably a patch to go over this as well if I'm lucky. Alright, I'll leave that. Oh, I'll just do that little corner piece. We need a triangle about okay, so I'm just gluing this piece of fabric on the back. I've peeled the other one off. It came off in more or less one piece, and I'm doing it with PVA. I think it's going to have better adhesion, and I want the PVA to penetrate into the cloth. This will fold around and tuck in underneath, but I'll wait till this is substantially dry before I do that. The rest of it's coming along. I think it's going to turn out pretty well. This is the most difficult part, of course, but I think it will be fine too. Once I colour that up, it's nice and black, it will be good. So that's coloured it up reasonably well. I initially rubbed black acrylic paint into it and washed it off as smooth as I could get it. And then I've given the case a coat of vinyl dye, which works reasonably well on anything like this. I've left it pretty much as it is. It still has an aged texture to it. That's reasonably smooth, but a lot of the cases has, I suppose, blemishes in it, rough surface. I've taken all the frayed edges out. That's turned out okay. And the same with the front. So that will now close up like that, and the back panel will go on like so. For some reason this slots up and sits behind the upper panel, but the screw holes are not in the right position for that, and if you put the screws in it leaves a gap there. And I checked these side brackets here that it screws into, and those screws are in their original positions. There's no indication that they've been moved, so I don't know why this is. For reasons best known to the manufacturers, I suppose. This does just catch under here, but only just, and once you put the screws in you still have this gap there. I've polished up all its little shiny bits, its hinges and whatever, and I've found a handle for it, which suits it perfectly. I think it's certainly not new. It's a little bit damaged, but looks the part. I think it should suit it well. So we're almost at the point of putting the radio back in the cabinet, but there's one more thing I've got to deal with, and that's this shelf, which was split. Now I've taken the 2 long screws out of it here and glued it up, and that's fine, but it still moves up and down. It's not anchored to the sides, so I have to get this vertical. I'm not sure how it was held in before, perhaps just glue, I don't really know. The batteries have to fit in underneath this, and I've got what I think is the correct line for it, which is just there. I've drawn a pencil line up the side, but I thought, how am I going to support it? So I'm going to put in a piece of timber underneath to brace it. I've checked that that will not foul the batteries, so I'll just cut that up and glue and perhaps panel pin it in place with this in the right position. First I just want to make sure that the battery will fit in here with it in position. Yes, it does. That gives it, with it on my pencil line, that gives us enough clearance, so it won't be a problem. I do need to find another little foot for it here. I might just replace all of these with rubber ones. These are plastic. I don't think they're original anyway. Just putting on its chrome bits and lining up the screw heads nicely so they're all in the same direction. I think this catch, at least, and most of the other stuff, is actually nickel plated rather than chrome. It has a slightly different look about it. Now this will be interesting because the tension on this little spring governs how well the clip works. I don't think it was properly adjusted before, so I will put this on it and we'll have to fiddle with it a little bit perhaps. So we're just about ready for this one to go back in its cabinet. Not quite though. I've still got to fit the cardboard baffle to the speaker, which goes over here, and the front panel. Now I was going to do something to fix up the surface of this, so let's do that while I think of it. And what I'm going to try on it is this stuff, Marvier. Now this is the best stuff I've come across for rejuvenating old woodwork. Unfortunately they don't make it anymore, and I've got that much left in the bottle, and that's probably the last remaining Marvier on the planet. It was made in Australia by a Kiwi who also made boot polish. It seems that people no longer polish their woodwork or their boots, so there you go, that's the world today. Anyway, let's give this a try. Tipping a little bit of the precious liquid onto a soft cotton pad, and I'll just rub it in. I dare say it contains various secret waxes and things. When I found they don't make it anymore, because I wanted to buy another bottle recently, I googled substitutes for it, and people are recommending things like cedar oil and orange oil, and I tried cedar oil, but it's just not as good. I've got a bottle of that there, but it's thicker and gluggy and really doesn't do what the Marvier does. Now I'll just give that a polish off. There we go. Now this just screws back on with various screws. I'll put the ones in where they came out. I don't know if they're original or not. Actually, there was a big Phillips self-tapper in that, but I found a better one for it. And another self-tapper that just goes in the bottom here. Now the front panel goes on with these spacers, and I don't think it had any washers with it, so they just go on with a spacer and a washer on the inside, but it had no washers on the front side. Just do that up loosely to start with and put the other side in, and I'll finish off with the screws slots horizontal. There we go. There. So next we have to refit our switch, and it goes on with 2 long screws through the cabinet and these little cup washers. So I'll have to undo this and be careful that the switch doesn't fall apart. It doesn't actually fall apart if you take the screws out, it's fairly firmly pressed together, but there goes a local hero. And get it horizontal too. There. All right. Well, I guess it's time to put it back in. I've also bought 4 little rubber feet for it, which for their size are proving disproportionately difficult to fit, mainly because of the boards inside here, the baffle boards for that hold the batteries in place. So I've got to reach down in here and get the washer on. Okay. By the way, there's the 2 baffles, or the 2 cleats I put in to hold the board up that holds the chassis. I'm not sure if I can clean this up or not. I think I'll just leave it as it is. Now I've taken the front door off to help it to go in more easily. It's still got the battery holder attached. And now what I have to do is fit these aerial connections before it goes too far in. And I've lost the other one temporarily, it's just up here. I put a couple of little ends on them, just made up of a coil of wire and yeah, a couple of bits of bent wire. So this is the most difficult to get in, I think, and it's the most likely to want to fall down, so I'll get him in first. Just get him through the front stock clip there. That was easy enough. I thought it would be a nightmare, but it's not. And same with this one. Alright. Just have to clear these wires behind the screw thing there. And there it is, back home in the cabinet. I'll just put its screws in before I lose them. There. Now I'll just pop the door back on. There we go, and that should turn it off when you close the lid. I've also found some screws to go up into the chassis there to hold it in place, and they'll just sit there without anything, I think. Okay, so the power supplies are on. Nothing's happening, of course, because the lid's shut, so let's see how we go. Why am I not hearing anything? Output's on, that would be good.
This could have been a beef for yesterday, but P plates and L plates.
I presume all that buzzing and whatever is from Well, some of it will be from the signal generator here. Some of it might be from this power supply.
This is 78. You have to have them fastened to you.
If it's just easy with
There really is
outside,
some awful noise in this shed.
plate, as you have just described it.
Well, that's 6IX. I'll just make sure the switch works, of course. Yep. Let's just put an aerial onto that back aerial connection and see how that goes. I think it's this side was the aerial.
This is what a classic sounds like.
Well, that'll be music, but that's as good a reception as you'll get on any radio of 6IX. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Well, here we are, back in its cabinet and working really well. That doesn't look too bad either, I've got to say. Still looks old, but in nice condition. It's a Peal 457B, or rather I should say a P457B, which is pretty much the same as an AirZone 457B without the P. Anyway, P or no P, it's working nicely, but of course still connected to the power supply and an external battery. So that's something we're going to have to do something about in the next video. So I hope you can stick around and watch the next video. We'll catch you then and we'll do something with these batteries. I have a cunning plan. Catch you then. Bye for now.